Well, it's a couple of minutes after 1 Pacific time, so we might as well start. My name is Sue Stevens. I'm an Energy Program Manager for the State of Nevada Governor's Office of Energy. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on performance contracting. This is our second webinar. We're going to be repeating some of the things that we discussed in the first webinar regarding performance contracting and how it works and the different aspects of it. But the one big thing that's different today is we have guest speakers from the city of Henderson who are going to talk about their successes that I have found extremely interesting. And I can talk later about our workshops, and one of our workshops is going to be at the city of Henderson, and hopefully they can give us anyone a tour of their facilities and learn more about what they've done, which is very impressive. I just wanted to first thank the folks at Sustainable Real Estate Solutions, SRS, for helping us with the technical details of setting up this webinar. It was very helpful. And just a little explanation about who they are. They're a cloud-based software platform that streamlines workflows across the performance contracting life cycle. It covers process from preliminary assessment and benchmarking. Sorry about that. I don't know why that keeps coming up. And the investment grade auditing. And also they get involved in measurement and verification of savings. If you're new to performance contracting, that'll make more sense later as we talk about it in more detail. The SRS platform ensures best practices are followed by promoting a technically sound and transparent performance contracting process. Now, if you want to learn more about SRS, their website is srmnetwork.com. You can also Google Sustainable Real Estate Solutions, and it comes up there as well. So moving right along, and my contact information will be provided later, but I got a feeling you probably already have it if you've been attending these webinars or any of our other events. The Public Facilities Retrofit Program within the Governor's Office of Energy is funded by the Department of Energy. It was a Department of Energy grant to accelerate the use of performance contracting in government facilities. And by government facilities, we're talking about state agencies, higher education. That's the Nevada system of higher education, which includes not just the universities in Reno and Las Vegas, but also community colleges. And it's geared to, focused on cities, counties, school districts, water districts, and other entities, public government entities like that. There's our website that you could go to, the energy.nv.gov website, and learn more about the program. And it's called the Public Facilities Retrofit Program, so look at that on the Active Programs tab. I wanted to mention that we're having workshops. We have 3 workshops planned. Originally, we had a workshop in Reno planned for January, but to give us more time to organize that and for better scheduling for everyone, we're going to move that to either March or April, so look for that. The first workshop will be in Las Vegas, and that's February 6th, and we'll be getting all the details regarding the workshop, where it's going to be held, and so everyone can make arrangements to attend. We'll be getting that out in the next few weeks. And then we have a workshop planned for the more rural part of the state. Winnemucca, we thought, was a nice venue to have a workshop, and hopefully we can pull in, make it easier for some people to travel to that who can't make it to Las Vegas or to Reno. We're going to be discussing today the best practices related to performance contracting, the type of technical assistance that our grant allows us to provide to the government agencies, and model procurement contracting documents, templates, and other assistance we can provide, as well as personal guidance one-on-one for government agencies to develop a successful project. We have a number of partners. One of our key, of course, important partners is the Department of Energy, And then also another key partner is the Energy Services Coalition. There's a Nevada chapter of the Energy Services Coalition that we are part of, and it helps us to fund these workshops in addition to some other things. We have several people working with us. We got some experts that the Department of Energy recommended that assist us. One is Linda Smith with 9,000-foot strategies in energy, and another expert that we have helping us is Chris Halpin, who is with Celtic Energy. And as I mentioned earlier, we are very honored to have Kathy Ogle and Ed McGuire from the city of Henderson who are going to share their experiences with performance contracting. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Linda.
Thank you, Sue. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to describe what is performance contracting and how does it work, so we're all on the same page here. So as facilities managers or perhaps budget decision makers, we face a lot of problems at the facility and including competing needs for the budget to resolve some of those facilities problems. And maintenance and comfort. And maintenance and comfort. Oh, I'm getting feedback, you guys. Maintenance problems and comfort complaints likely keep you from doing better facility management, like preventive maintenance. And you may have limited expertise on technologies. And you have too many demands on staff time to launch new projects, yet you want to replace the equipment and modernize your facilities. So if you face these problems, you definitely aren't alone, and an innovative solution to resolve those problems is performance contracting as a way to get better buildings. So energy savings performance contracting takes advantage of the fact that energy saving projects pay for themselves, and savings stack up over time and accumulate to the point that they pay for the entire upfront cost of a project. It's a way to upgrade your facilities without dipping into your capital budget, so using future cost savings to pay for projects. So here's how it works. The pie on the left shows the annual budget, where a portion of the pie is for energy costs or utility costs, and the other portion is for maintenance costs. The pie on the right then shows what the budget would look like after installing energy-saving equipment. So both utility and maintenance costs are reduced, freeing up a portion of the budget pie to pay for those improvements over time. And by the way, when we say utility or energy costs, we're lumping in water, sewer savings in that as well. So facility owners can make the building improvements right away without impacting the capital budget and without competing for budget approval. Projects are financed and often set up as a 15-year maximum lease purchase agreement. So it's a municipal tax-exempt lease purchase agreement where the annual savings are guaranteed to make the annual lease purchase payment. Under many treasurer rulings, it may not be considered debt, which means then that it does not impact the debt ceiling. And it's intended to be 100% paid for through the resulting savings. But other funding sources could be blended in to further expand the scope of the project and achieve even more upgrades to be paid for through savings. So here's how it works over time. The blue segments show the true utility costs before and after the retrofits. The red segments show the savings that are captured to pay for the projects throughout the financing term. The green segments show that savings continue to accrue after the projects are paid for, and that you get to reap those savings through the remaining life of the equipment. The purple segments at the top show that as the utility costs escalate more than planned, you reap those savings as well. So we often call savings avoided costs to avoid the misinterpretation that those monies are available. So the bulk of savings are committed to pay for those projects. So the key to making this happen is an energy service company, or ESCO. The ESCO will bring a team of specialists to tackle every aspect of your project. So it looks like this. You contract with your selected ESCO, who will put the pieces together in a turnkey approach. The ESCO will first identify and evaluate project opportunities, then help arrange for financing and bring in other funding sources that may be available, such as utility rebates. And once the performance contract is signed, the ESCO will design, install, commission, and manage projects. Another critical piece is that the ESCO will measure and verify savings, and the ESCO will train staff to ensure savings over the long term. And the ESCO can provide ongoing maintenance services as negotiated. Most importantly, the ESCO will guarantee that savings cover all costs and pay the difference if they don't. So the ESCO puts all the pieces together in this turnkey approach. So this shows the contractual arrangement so between the three parties, including the financing partner. The facility owner has a contract with the ESCO and a parallel contract with the financing company. The ESCO typically does not provide financing, but will facilitate the financial partnership. What connects the ESCO and the financial partner is the performance guarantee, where the ESCO bears the financial risk of the project and guarantees that savings will meet the annual financing payment, so making the customer whole to pay the financing company in the event of any shortfall in the guaranteed level of savings. So anything that saves money can potentially be included in a performance contracting project. In Nevada, the laws allow for a variety of saving streams, including energy of all types, water savings, operational, utility, and maintenance cost savings. And you could even look beyond that at other savings streams. So there's a very broad range of measures that can be included in a project as listed here. So here's just a quick glance at the process, and then Chris will go into this a little bit more in detail in a minute. So if you're interested, the program has support for you to help you decide if performance contracting is right for you. Then the second step is to develop an RFP to competitively select an energy service company. Then it's a two-step contractual process to move forward with a project. So in step 3, it's the ESCO will develop an investment grade audit and conduct that work to evaluate the energy saving and water saving opportunities. And then in step 4, you have the opportunity to follow through on those recommendations and contract with the ESCO then to implement the projects. And then finally, the ESCO is involved for the long term to measure and verify the savings so that you can enjoy the benefits. And that wraps it up for me.
I forgot to tell everybody to, if they have a question, they can enter it in the chat box and we'll answer it. Either we'll save it for later or we'll answer it at the time you enter the question. Thank you.
Okay, this is Kathy Ogle with the City of Henderson. I'm a construction project coordinator with the Public Works Department.
Hi, and I'm Ed McGuire, the current Facilities Maintenance Manager for the City of Henderson Public Works Department. Okay, you're right. Sorry. So the background on our city, we're, if you're not familiar with the City of Henderson, it's about just over 100 square miles, 275,000 residents or so. We have about 2 million square feet of city facilities under roof, 60 miles of trails, about 53 miles of lit trails, 11 swimming pools, 7 rec centers, 52 baseball or softball fields, over 1,200 acres of parks or park space, and we're still adding amenities. So from the city's perspective, our population was rising, the use of our facilities was rising, and the budget was falling. The city owns the water and the wastewater plant, and did I mention the budget was falling? Our operational costs are rising, you know, fuel, labor, insurance, all that stuff, and as we put it, all the non-glamorous stuff is wearing out, and it's hard to compete sometimes with new capital projects that are considered sexier with old, worn-out maintenance projects. So on top of that, we've got out-of-date technology to deal with, you know, systems in buildings. The budget for those is falling. Did I mention that? Our annual electricity bill is about $10 million. You can see there $500,000 in natural gas, $2.3 million in water bills, and in our city, the sewer fees are included in the water bill based on usage. And then that includes all of our utilities, the water plant, the wastewater plant. So about $3.3 million a year are the facilities, the buildings themselves, the cost of heating and cooling and lighting. Our economy was kind of tanking here in Southern Nevada. Talking to our customers, Parks and Rec said they had more and more people staying. We were getting busier in rec centers with what they called staycations. You know, you get some time off work, but you don't go anywhere. So the expectations were rising, and you know, we had lots of items that need replacing. So what do? You do more with less, right? But do you get to the point where you're expected to do everything with nothing? Of course, you can't do that. So we went to NRS 332, the purchasing statute. I'm going to turn the time over to Kathy to talk about that.
In NRS Chapter 332 enables local governments to enter into energy-saving performance contracts. And when this first was passed, I believe it was in 2005, the city started getting a lot of cold calls from ESCO companies, and no one here at the city really knew very much about the new law because it had just been enacted, and no other local governments in the state had done anything like this yet. The performance contracting process, as Linda and Sue have already kind of gone over, the owner puts out an RFP to select the ESCO company. There's a kickoff meeting with the scope discussion. A financial grade audit is developed with the selected ESCO company. Once that's reviewed, the energy services agreement is signed, the final design is completed, and then everything goes under construction. And from that point on, it's handled very similar to a design-build contract. There's measurement and verification of savings, and there's ongoing operations and maintenance. When we first entered into our first performance contract, we decided to go with only one building, our justice facility. It was a $2.8 million energy savings project focused on that building. We chose that one because we had a little bit of everything there. There was a correctional facility, there were courtrooms. It was one of our oldest buildings, and it was really in need of some upgrades. And that project was completed in 2007, and it's currently saving over $250,000 per year. And the funding for that one was a combination of about 1/3 capital funds from the city, and 2/3 of it was a medium-term bond issue for 10 years. That way we avoided having to go to debt council. The second project was our citywide project, and that cost just over $20 million, and it's saving currently about $2 million annually. The second project was financed with a 15-year loan. We put out an RFP for bank loans, and Bank of America gave us the best terms and the best rate. The reason that we went with the 15-year loan at that point was because that was when the economy was really going into the jumper, and the city just wasn't in a position to do another bond issue, and we needed the extra time with the 15 years to pay that back. Both projects have guaranteed savings. If the savings aren't achieved, either the ESCO installs further upgrades to achieve the savings or pays down the cost of the energy saving measures until the cost benefit is positive. And it is important, your ESCO is your business partner, so select them carefully.
All right, I'll go over some of our project specifics for anybody listening. If you have any specific questions about the actual items we installed, I'd be happy to answer those questions. So we started out, lighting is really a kind of a low-hanging fruit project. Just about any kind of lighting, you can find more efficient lighting that will pay for itself quickly. So in the buildings, we had about 4,000 light fixtures we retrofit. If you look at the number of lamps, we had a lot more lamps. So many of these were just lamp and ballast changes. We did 23,000 4-foot T12s were converted to T8. They went from 32 watt to 28 watt high output. They're actually quite a bit brighter. They have a long life, instant on, full output, and lighting sensors in many offices, many locations that don't have any sort of building automation. They got the like watt stopper style, in the light switch. Something to mention here, we're talking about energy savings and potential maintenance savings. We negotiated, or our ESCO negotiated, when they were purchasing lights. We ended up buying Philips light bulbs, not only because they had a good lamp, but because we were able to negotiate a long warranty. So we have a 5-year warranty on all the lamps and ballasts, and they're replaced free of charge for any reason, basically, once they're in the building. So that's saving us a lot of operational costs over that 5-year life. We did energy management system. We've had energy management system in about a dozen locations that varied from pretty simple to very complex at our larger buildings. We added controls, complete controls at 2 locations, and upgraded or optimized in all the other locations. We replaced 17 large boilers in 9 buildings. Some of those are a combination of pool heat and building heat. We retrofit one of the rec centers with basically a boiler plant that provides us a lot more flexibility in when they want to heat the pool water quickly, like with a water change, they can divert all of the building heat into the pool if it's not a really cold day in the winter, and they're able to heat the pool quicker. And so it bought us a lot of flexibility and increased efficiency. We replaced chillers in 2 locations, and there was a big energy savings there. I'll talk more about that in a minute. The city's been putting in low water toilets, sinks, showers, things like that for years. So out of the probably 10,000 faucets and toilets, there were only 310 that were replaced because we had a lot of low water. But as part of this, as part of the audit, we checked them all to verify we had low water, low flow, the proper aerators. There's a few locations where we compromised for really operational reasons. Some of the parks, we use prison-grade toilets out in the field, and there is no low-flow prison-grade toilet based on the nature of its job. So there's a few, we actually adjusted them down, not as low as they are inside of a building, but they were all looked at. They were all adjusted and improved wherever possible. We added ultraviolet water treatment at an indoor swimming pool, which in itself isn't an energy saver, it's an energy user, but big picture, it saves us chemicals, it improves air quality and usability of the facility. So big picture, it's a winner, so it was added to the project list. And some of the other items that save more money, like the big chiller and some of the lighting, gives you the flexibility to add in some things that correct flaws, from a maintenance or operation standpoint. As part of the whole project, you can make those work. Here's a couple of pictures. If you're a maintenance guy, this is the sexy stuff. We got a magnetic bearing chiller, or a couple of them. We put them in 2 locations. We've had very good luck with this chiller. Saves a lot of electricity. It's very quiet, very efficient, and thus far has been very low maintenance. This is the UV water treatment. These are UV lamps we put them in 2 different locations, and like I said, saved on the chemicals and improved the chemistry inside, mostly air quality. This was one of those unfortunate events that happened to occur while we were working on City Hall. We had a bad light and a boiler exploded and blew the front off. But conveniently, the new boiler was already on order. So this was basically scrapped, removed for scrap, and new thermal solutions installed in its spot. So it didn't leave us, you know, in a cold spot there without a boiler. The timing worked out good. If you have to have a boiler explosion, do it during the contract. It works out better. Not that I recommend boiler explosions. And then one of our big projects, we probably didn't even think about this. You know, you think about a lot of traditional, you know, office lighting and low flow toilets and all that. We looked at our street lighting. All the street lights in the Las Vegas Valley were installed with the same standard drawing. They were all high pressure sodium. All the streets have that yellow tint. We replaced them all with inductive fixtures. That is the bottom photo. That is not a color corrected or anything. That's a test area on the same exact piece of Gibson Road near my office. The white lights are the new, and then you can see the high pressure sodium at the end of the road. And it really improves color rendition. The human eye sees it as a much more natural light. You can distinguish colors better at night and details better at night, and they use half the wattage. And I'll show you some evidence of the savings there in a second. We replaced, we had a few old mercury-containing thermostats left in some, you know, in the simplest of locations that don't have any sort of programmable anything. Those were all replaced with programmable thermostats, and all the lead was collected. All of our materials were shipped off for recycling. So not only was it an energy project, but we wanted to be, you know, good environmental stewards. So that was something our ESCO said they always, as part of the project, they always find a recycler that will take all the materials off our hands, so we didn't end up with any solid waste problems. Here's a kind of a close-up of a picture at the sidewalk, and you know, of that lighting. And then we added some photovoltaics. We had a photovoltaic system at one of our police substations. We have a LEED Gold police substation that had covered parking with a solar array. And with the project, we more than doubled, basically tripled the array there. Did a lot of rooftop air conditioners, and then there's the streetlight numbers. 28,000 streetlights were done in this project. Exhaust fans at the jail, more heating and cooling type items. And then along the way, some of the stuff we picked up were things like failing valves and controllers. So when you're there trying to change a chiller out and you find that the old valves don't close tight, we replaced the valves and made plumbing repairs, and they all go with the future savings and the maintenance savings. So all those items were picked up and made part of this. So we did have contingency money set aside, and you know, specifically for this. There's a picture of some of the street lights. We had a retrofit kit developed for the bulk of them. We were able to retrofit. Those we could not retrofit came here and were sorted, and all of those were shipped off along with all the old thermostats, the old ballasts, a few small transformers. It was all shipped off to a recycler. Our new chillers, R22 refrigerant was removed, collected, and the new chillers are R134A, a non-ozone depleting refrigerant. And here's the hard part when you're at work doing this for a living. We had to coordinate with 1,900 full-time employees. Every department was affected. Just about every building was touched. We had, at any given time, up to 15 contractors working in, according to my slide, up to 36 locations. And there's actually more locations than that. Sometimes you had a contractor in 3 locations at a time, plus about 800 miles of city streets that got streetlights. So it's quite a project to coordinate. We had a great project manager with our ESCO, made some great recommendations as we went. We developed press releases and door hangers for neighborhoods when they were doing streetlights, and all of these were open for business. Some was night work, some was weekend work, some there were very short-term shutdowns. We were basically open for business through this entire project, and no major shutdowns, no major closures, no long-term building closures of any type. Our rec centers are open from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., so you do not get a very big window to work at night there. And we were able to work through all those, working closely with basically our customers, our occupants, and you know, we set up a web page. We had a method to contact the city if you had a problem with your energy project. We actually put it on our web page as energy project. You could submit comments specific to the project if you thought something wasn't working correctly. And it was a huge success. Very small number of complaints and concerns. Very small number of, you know, bad ballast and bad lamps. You know, you have, you know, 1 out of 1,000 that doesn't light up, or it only stays lit for 3 days. But we were able to track those quickly and take the public's feedback and make the repairs quickly. So it ended up that in itself was a feat, and that part was hugely successful because we partnered, you know, with the ESCO and all our users, our customers.
And we really did, like the slide says, have a dream team for the project. We selected the most qualified energy service company, and they function as the prime or general contractor in like a design-build type contract. The ESCO selects the subs, the designers, engineers, suppliers, and installers to complete the project. Also vital to this was our third-party energy consultant, who acted as our representative from day one. We actually hired the third-party consultant prior to putting out the RFP for the project and for the ESCO, and they helped us develop the RFP and were involved in the selection process and acted as our owner representative. Since this was so new to the city of Henderson, it was really important that we had somebody who really knew what they were doing when it came to performance contracting. And NRS 332 requires that the third-party consultant be an AEE certified energy manager. City staff are in design and construction and facilities maintenance, manage the day-to-day work, and we help coordinate with all of the employees and the occupants of the buildings to make sure that they knew what was going on, when it was going on, if they were going to see people in the building that they weren't familiar with, they knew why they were there and what was going to be happening. We also processed all the payments. We reviewed certified payroll. This is considered a prevailing wage project, so that is required of all contractors working on the project to pay prevailing wage. And we also had bi-weekly coordination and project meetings here on site. So for the citywide contract, the original contract amount was just over $17.5 million. The change orders were owner added at about 13%, a little over $2.5 million. So the total price came to just over $20 million. About the time that we were doing this project, we received rebates from NV Energy. It also coincided with the release of the ARRA funds, so we were able to get about $1 million in that, which we could use for projects that we had identified early on in the energy performance audit, but we decided not to go forward with because we didn't have enough money to do it. But with those funds, we were able to add those back into the project. And we also had some capital funds that became available that we could add to the project as well. And the project was completed on time, and we had no issues with anything coming in late.
So here's a couple of examples I promised. This was a residential, this was basically a test neighborhood. Our street maintenance supervisor chose his own neighborhood to be the guinea pig, did the retrofit, and then monitor it. This is the first month, and when I told you they used about half the power, we went from 100-watt residential to about 47-watt actual consumption, the lamp and the ballast, or the driver, and there's the power bill. It went in half from November to December, and if anything, the nights are longer in December. So, you know, it was one of those almost too good to believe, but, you know, we did our homework, we did some testing. Here's the next bill. This is an arterial. Slightly larger savings here. I think we're going from March to April. The nights are getting shorter. But anyway, basically across the board, the street light bills went in half. The street lights alone are about $1 million a year in simple energy savings. This was also another item, the lamp and driver, we searched far and wide for a good solution, and we landed on inductive lamps. We found 3 suppliers that met the specifications, so it's not a sole source situation. Any other entity can purchase the same thing. There are multiple suppliers, and but the magic here is the one we landed on. We got a 10-year written warranty on the lamp and the driver, and we have had very, very, very low lamp failure. We've lost more drivers than lamps, and the good news here is the lamp costs more than the driver. So anyway, the electronics are less expensive. We've lost a few from lightning strikes, if you can believe that, but the lamps have been very durable. And then here's a graph. This is 4 years worth of data for 3 locations. It's a little bit difficult to follow, but the blue bar is our convention center, about 40,000 square feet, single story, lots of doors, people coming and going. We have no control over, the schedule there. It's as it's booked. They can stay open until midnight, or they can close at 9 o'clock at night. A lot of variability in that building historically. The red bar is the the emergency services facility. It's a 110,000 square foot building. It's much more energy efficient. It's a much tighter facility. It's 3 floors. Has the same size chiller, interestingly enough, based on the losses there. And then the Black Mountain Rec Center, same size chiller. That's the 3rd one we put in with our own money at the tail end of this project with some more capital money. The 3 of them received new chillers. Excuse me. And the project was going in the 08-09 time frame. So you can see basically the cost was rising a little bit there from 08 to 09, and then the project went in, and there's 11, and I can tell you 12 and 13 are the same. I did this early on for a presentation, as basically as soon as I could take a snapshot of another summer, and our summer months, we're averaging 35% power decrease. Our convention center summer months, the hottest months of the year, it's 50% less. The power bill for the building is 50% less, and it's more comfortable. That one got controls and a new chiller, and not only is it more comfortable, it's literally the hottest, most expensive months of the year are 50% less than they were 4 years ago or 5 years ago now. So it really has been as successful as we hoped, and then some. And then we use a little piece of software for tracking some of our utilities. This is a snapshot of, I'll call it all city buildings. It's not actually all the buildings. It's all the ones that I'm monitoring closely, all our larger buildings. But that trend arrow there, the year to date, same day, 2 years apart, 12 to 13, it's still down 15%. At this point, the project is done, and we're basically in operation mode. And there's the history there with the bills. 10 to 11, it went down a little. 11 to 12, it went down some more. And then 13, that was year to date, but the trend was still down lower. And I think I can tell you why. Here in our summary, if you look at the 3rd bullet, so the good stuff, our carbon footprint shrunk, our greenhouse gas emissions went down, we removed some mercury, we decreased our maintenance costs and effort, but one of the biggies, that bullet should be 3 times as big. The projects resulted for us in a cultural change at the City of Henderson. My customer as a facilities manager is the full-time employees of the city, and then in the case of some of the locations, it's also the taxpayers and the rec center users and everybody else. But with all the legwork we did, getting our customer engaged and telling them what was going to happen and what was going to change and why we were doing it, the savings have continued to increase. We've had people make adjustments to really their work lifestyle, if you will. This project, the 2 phases that we talk about, we're not changing thermostats and turning the lights off or taking out every other light bulb to save energy. These were, in theory, invisible improvements. If you were an occupant in that building, we didn't turn it up in the summer, make it colder in the winter, turn the hot water heater down to lukewarm. I mean, these were make it more efficient, but continue to operate in the same temperature range you always had, which is very comfortable. Many of the published numbers are cooler in the winter and warmer in the summer than we were used to, frankly. And so since then, that trend line down is our customers saying, hey, aren't we trying to save energy here and turning things off and turning things down lower in the winter? And so it's been a kind of a win-win. We put in the structural measures, but we also changed a lot of opinions and attitudes, and that has paid us back as well. So all those change orders, those were rebates and things like that. They all were plowed back into the project. Everything we selected was high efficiency, low emissions, mercury-free or low mercury wherever possible. Kind of a triple bottom line approach, more efficient, long warranty, take out as much of the environmental problem stuff as you can. Like I said before, all these pieces that were replaced were recycled, sent to a scrapyard that separated everything, including recovering mercury. And then we're over $2 million a year in savings. We've plugged some of those numbers into the EPA energy benchmarking software, and City Hall improved over 20 points. The engineering services facility doesn't fit the mold for Energy Star due to its occupancy levels. It's a 24/7 facility. It's a working substation and the 911 call center, and then office space. And the office space is only occupied during the day. So it doesn't quite fit as an office building, but its Energy Star score is very high the way we modeled it. And I'm not submitting for an Energy Star plaque because it's not technically a traditional office building, and it doesn't quite fit in the software. But anyway, we've seen huge increases and huge savings. So we had a guaranteed 17% savings, and in many of these locations, we're basically double our estimated savings.
Any questions for Kathy or Ed? Type them into the chat box. Thank you.
If there's no questions, we're going to turn the time over to Chris Halpin.
All right, this is Chris Halpin. Can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yep, Chris, we can hear you okay.
You can hear me? Okay, great. All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. Kathy and Ed, fantastic job. You're making it a very difficult act to follow. Anyway, I'm going to go through and talk a little bit about what sort of technical assistance that Linda and both Sue referred to early on in the presentation, and some more details about what comes with the program, with the grant rather, for free, and then what is good suggestions for technical assistance going forward. So one of the first things that this grant allows the energy office to do is to get the assistance of both Linda and my company, Celtic Energy, to help you as a potential user of performance contracting really decide if this is right for you. One of the things we'll do is do an assessment of your facility to see if it can if it would be a good candidate for performance contracting. And that's, how much work have you done in it? Is it an older facility that really needs some upgrades? We'll do this by inspecting the building through walkthroughs, as well as meeting with your existing operations and maintenance folks, design and construction folks, depending on how big an organization you are, and also meeting with upper-level decision makers in finance and budget, legal, so on. We'll also do some benchmarking, much like what Ed was talking about, to see how much you're using compared to your peers in both dollars per square foot, BTs per square foot, and other metrics, and really help you support your decision-making team to get the go decision to really get a project like this going. We'll also help you competitively select an ESCO, as Kathy had described earlier. Using the standardized process, we develop templates and contracts and so on for this grant that we'll be able to make available to everybody on the user side. And that includes helping prepare the RFP, review proposals, and act as a neutral advisor as you go through and make your decision on your ESCO. So what will also happen is, as we get further along in this and get you down the road in the performance contracting process, project savings will pay for any of the continued technical assistance as referenced in the statute, which was mentioned earlier with the statute number. You can always look those up or get them directly from Sue Stevens. That will pay for the third-party review of the investment grade audit, as Kathy was referring to when we did that for her at City of Henderson, and we're able to do some sort of double checking on open book pricing and the savings calculations, measurement verification plan, and so on. We'll also help educate and advise everybody throughout the contract negotiations, which we found to be very, very illuminating to everybody, because there are things in those contracts that aren't sort of readily understandable to a person who hasn't done this before. We'll also ensure that there's thorough documentation. This is something that's really important because these are a paid from savings contracts. You want to make sure those savings are going to be achieved year after year throughout the contract term. In this case, it was a 15-year project, and that's really going to be based on good, thorough documentation of how the savings were calculated, how the measurement verification plan was put in place, and is it being followed, and so on. And there's a lot more to it we'll go into at the workshops in a couple of months. Another thing that's very important is ensuring that the reasonable project costs, engineering fees, commissioning fees, and so on, and the ESCO's markups, which is overhead profit, and so on. And one of the most important components to one of these is ensuring that there's sound measurement and verification approaches being used. And we'll use international protocol as sort of the standard protocol being used in the industry today. So one of the first things that happens as part of this is building the project team. And it's very important that we get all of the stakeholders that have what we call veto-proof authority, or veto authority over a project like this, involved from the beginning. And it was great with Henderson. We had the support of the upper management all the way down through operations and maintenance, especially once that first project was completed at the Justice Center. It really made for a very positive experience for everybody. We'll also discuss lessons learned from other performance contracts, and it's almost as important to know what doesn't work as what does work. And that really, we feel, helps streamline the whole process. And securing the commitment of all the stakeholders. This is a very important issue. We've run into problems in the past with projects where we had somebody who was sort of hanging out in the background waiting till the end and didn't really speak up until the end of the project. So we want to make sure, and you want to make sure, you get everybody that's a true stakeholder involved from the beginning. And acting as a liaison with the Energy Office is critical as well, to make sure that you're getting the full support of Sue and her team at the Energy Office. Now, one of the first things that happens after you get the buy-in from everybody is really meet with the staff, discuss, what sort of issues, chronic problems and things they're having now, and try to get them addressed through this process. That's a unique vehicle to be able to address a lot of these issues. And a lot of cities and towns and universities and hospitals and so on over the past 10 years up until 2008, 2009 had built a lot of facilities, much like Henderson did. They were growing by leaps and bounds at the time. But a lot of the existing facilities didn't really get a lot of attention because all of the money and attention was being spent on the new facilities. So here's an opportunity, sort of the brass ring that everybody in the O&M part of the organization really needs to address. So we talk about what kind of projects have been done already. What are real critical infrastructure needs? What sort of things do they have planned for that are short of funding? One thing that happened in the city of Henderson, they had a chiller fail during the IGA, and they were able to negotiate an agreement with the ESCO that allowed them to get that chiller installed prior to the very hot summer season. So it was something like that can be very, very helpful. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we really want to review and benchmark existing utility data, sort of, see which are the problem facilities, which are really using a lot of money per square foot that can't be explained by their operations. Like the ESF facility that Ed had mentioned, it's a 24/7, police and so on, and it's got a small jail in the basement. We expect that to be high in dollars per square foot. But some of the other facilities may surprise you, and they're the ones that can really make for great targets. And it will create a good utility baseline from which the savings will then be calculated. The next part of this free technical assistance is following a standardized RFQ and RFP process that's been established through the office, the Energy Office, by this grant. And we've spent the past year really putting a nice sort of a finishing touch on templates for RFPs, contracts, and so on that virtually all follow the Energy Services Coalition templates that Linda was involved in many years ago when she did this for the state of Colorado, and working with the local ESG chapter to really get buy-in from everybody that's involved. And that really makes for a streamlined process, both to the owners and the ESCOs, which makes a much more effective and successful program going forward. One of the things that happens is prepare the RFP from the beginning, take this energy office template and modify it as needed, because it's going to be slightly different for a town, to a school district, or water authority, to a university, and so on. And it gets modified as needed to meet the charter and procurement requirements of each individual user agency. We'll also assist with putting together a technical facility profile, which will include descriptions of your buildings, how they're currently operating, 2 to 3 years of utility data in electronic format, and any plans and specifications we can get our hands on that will help the ESCOs put together really good responsive proposals. We'll also act as a neutral advisor, and that will include helping you assemble your selection committee and then briefing them on this whole process so everyone understands how this works, what the expectations are going to be from everybody that's on that selection team. Then we'll do a brief committee on the RFP issuance, what's going to be expected of them in reviewing the proposals, and how the scoring criteria works. And just like Kathy had mentioned earlier, this is a design-build process. So you're not going to be making a selection based on bid prices. It's a much different vehicle. So it just requires some more work up front that the Energy Office will help you with through this grant. And then if there are any presentations that need to be made to, Board of Education, anybody else that's going to need to give you an approval, we will help with that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sue. For any questions, please type them into your chat bar. Thank you.
Looks like we had a couple of questions. Question for Ed and Kathy. What do you do with the excess savings? Do the budget folks allow you to access these funds and spend them for more facility improvements? And so I think that's a good time to stop and answer some of those. And Kathy?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have, in many locations, we've exceeded our savings goal. So we've got the option of either paying our loan off early, but with the situation the economy's been in, we've been using this as basically a project money for additional energy projects. So since we finished the project, anything we've done that gets an additional rebate or additional savings, we've tried to set aside for additional energy-saving projects. So I kind of went with that cultural change. We've got a lot of buy-in from budget and finance. And I'll give you an example. We finished this project a couple of years ago as it sits, and we're 2 years later, and we're reaping some savings and making payments. And my automation software is at the end of its useful life. They're no longer going to support the old version. There's some new hardware and software that I need an upgrade. So it's a $250,000 project, and I frankly don't have $250,000 worth of capital this year, and the software is goes out of support at the end of 2014. So I worked with my controls company and got a price, and then and they wanted to sell me something that would save additional energy, and I said, really, I don't have any extra money. But we went ahead and briefed the mayor and council on the project, what we needed to do, that it had an end of life coming up here, and we had to figure out a way to pay for it. And the mayor said, from a sustainability perspective, I want the add-ons. I want to save more money going down the road. So we took that to budget and said, all these projects that we've promised you in the past have saved money and or exceeded our guaranteed savings or our estimated savings. So can we take a little bit of that money and pay for this project? And long story short, we went to council, and they're fronting $450,000 based on our current savings to buy another project, if you will, that over its 10-year life we expect will save another $500,000. It'll pay for itself and net, and this is the conservative estimate, about $450,000. Our consultants, the vendor is saying he would be a little more aggressive, and he thinks we'll save more like $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 and pocket that money over that 10 years. So, so the answer is, depending on your financing method, it's your flexibility as an entity within, the laws of the state of Nevada. If you're working in Nevada, I can speak to those. So, so we basically have the ability to do both. We can pay down faster, or we can leverage that money that's not earmarked for a payment. And thus far, we've been lucky that we can plow it into additional facility projects and energy projects. Does that answer the question?
It does for me.
Okay.
And we're still taking questions. Here's one. What do you know now that you've completed a project that you wish you had known at the beginning? That's a good one.
And this is another one. I have an answer, and maybe Kathy has something to add. And it's not so much that I didn't know, it's that I didn't really think about it. And Chris just touched on this. When you select your ESCO, you look at this, and it's not under NRS for design build or public works projects. There's a separate statute that covers performance contracting, and it has some very specific rules that are very advantageous to a government entity. We've spoken to some of our other peers here at the other entities, and they say, any one of these projects I could do myself as a traditional public works project. Go out, do a design, bid, build. But there's no way you're going to pull off 18 or 20 projects in a one-year period doing separate design, bid, build on all of them, and then you're going to be looking at it as a low bid situation. And as Chris said, once you've made that selection, it's a qualification-based selection. You're putting together a team that's your designer and your construction manager and your project manager and your energy savings, your audit team. You stop looking at this as a low bid, and you start looking at it as what's the absolute best way to fix this long-term. Gives you the opportunity to take a very long-term view of all of these projects. And we were able, our ESCO always started with, the first question was, who does this for you now? Do you have a preferred provider for, cooling, heating, boilers, lighting, whatever? Who are the vendors you're working with today that you already have found trustworthy, responsible and reliable? And whether they're the low bid or not, is kind of a separate issue. If they have a fair price, but they can deliver and exceed your expectation, that's what you get as part of the project. So we were able to hand select equipment and supplies and not be forced or be offered an or equal. And with somebody telling you it's a short-term win, your awarded project will cost $50,000 less, we're looking at the lifetime cost. So anything that didn't save energy and maintenance, we wouldn't even bother, they didn't really stand a chance. So we ended up getting the stuff we wanted from the people that we knew could do it, and without cheating. You're not cheating the system. You're following the statute because it's a performance energy contract. It's a performance contract, not a low bid situation. So that is huge for another entity or a school district. It takes you into a different kind of category for bidding, and I got to say, it works really well. Anything you want to add, Kathy?
Did the ESCO help you find those incentives, or did the utility contact you directly, or did you find them?
Some of both. We have filed for rebates for years, things that qualify. But we did it on a much larger scale here. Nevada Energy presented us with the largest check that Nevada Energy ever cut for a rebate with this project. So it's not that we didn't do rebates before, it's that we never had taken on a project this many items in this short a time frame and submitted so many different rebate, so many components. We had lights and, interior lights, exterior lights, street lights, all going into Nevada Energy, plus the chiller, there was lots of things that all went at the same time. So the ESCO helped. It's not that it's the first time we did it, but we certainly had a more complete package than we ever have, and, got one of those giant $845,000 checks at City Council. So worked out real good for us.
It was also really helpful because the ESCO, if you've ever had to fill out one of those applications for a rebate, especially if you're doing things on a very large scale like 28,000 streetlights, there's a lot of information and detailed technical things that you have to fill out. So our ESCO company took care of that portion of it. So basically all I had to do was sign it, which took a lot of pressure off of me, a lot of stress, and I knew things. Because they installed it, they knew exactly what was there, and there was no mistake. had I or someone else filled it out going, oh, is this what they did? I don't know, and trying to track down that information. And plus, they knew when the deadlines were coming up, so they could keep track of when we needed to get these things in place to make sure that we got our applications in on time to actually get the rebates.
Boy, that's a good point. There's nothing worse than finding out you could have had some money, but you missed the deadline.
Right, and that's a tough one to explain to your bosses.
Yeah. We also had a question I think is more appropriate for Chris Halpin, and that is, what kinds of projects do you know that have gone on in Nevada, some of the major projects? And
Sure. Over the past 10 years, we've been working in this role as a third-party consultant throughout Nevada, and we've worked with the City of Reno, which also did an excellent project. I think it's about 22 million, just a million or so shy of City of Henderson's. The I think it was six northern Nevada school districts. As we know, Holly Luna did a great job at our webinar 2 weeks ago. From Douglas County Schools, but also Washoe County Schools has done 6 phases of this. Churchill County Schools, Lyon County Schools. There have been Southern Nevada Water Authority has done a project. Clark County Water Reclamation District is in the process of a performance contract right now, which could be the biggest one so far in the state. I believe UNLV did one many years ago, as did UNR, before all of this legislation was put in place with the new statutes that really put a lot more robust requirements in place. And several other school districts and cities, towns, and counties have all over Nevada. So it's been pretty successful. I think over $100 million of investment has been put into the state through performance contracts.
thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
So we'll go on if nobody else had any questions. Or go ahead and type them in, and we'll get to it at the end. We're just going to do a high-level summary. We've dug down into the details, and Kathy and Ed did a wonderful job of giving us some concrete, real-life examples. So we're just going to go back to the overview, the high-level viewpoint. It's to look at things that you might not think of every day, like not just saving energy use and being able to get your projects done now, but also you're saving energy and water. It's helping the environment by reducing pollution. And I didn't want to forget to mention the renewable energy opportunities. You can also roll renewable energy opportunities like a solar project or geothermal project into your performance contract. Just like you can do other types of operational improvements that save you money. Wrap it all together and get it all done at once and get it all financed at once. Also, reduces our dependence on fossil fuels. And to the extent you reduce a taxpayer burden, hopefully, that money can come back to do other things and avoid wasted dollars that are spent on aging infrastructure. And as far as creating jobs, I thought one of the best examples, and it was in our previous webinar when Holly Luna, the CFO from the Douglas County School District, talked about her project. It was somewhat of a unique approach. I don't know if Ed or Kathy mentioned this, but they wanted to keep the work local. They wanted to stimulate their local economy, not just Nevada or the United States, but they want to make sure that their local contractors and vendors got in on the act and were able to benefit from the performance contracting project. So Holly proved that you can do performance contracting and pump that money into your local economy. And these are just things that I think we've already touched on. You don't have to spend capital dollars. You don't have to delay. You can leverage the incentives like we just discussed, protect your budget from future rate increases. And in this post-era world that we're all dealing with, there's not a lot of money out there for these kinds of projects, but performance contracting overcomes that hurdle. It's a whole building, comprehensive approach, and the heart of performance contracting is the savings guarantee and the ESCO partnership. you can get your staff trained and up to speed and get their systems manageable by incorporating training, maintenance into the contract. It's a cost-effective approach. The guarantee of the savings removes risk. It's a one-stop shop with ESCO as a single point of accountability. Low-interest financing options are interesting because I had a general impression that rates had gone up, but we're seeing 2 to 3% type of financing rates out there for performance contracting. The financial community seems to like it. I'm not surprised. So there's lots of low-interest financing options out there, maybe even more now than back a few years ago. And then the annual savings verification is key. Chris did a good job of going over that in accordance with the international protocols. So there's the contact information. Feel free to email me. And also, I'd like you to check out our website, especially if you missed the last webinar where we had Holly Luna's presentation. There's no audio with it. It's just the slides, but she did a good job of coming up with the slides that really describe well what they did and what the savings were there. And then also on that website, we will have this webinar posted with the audio. I should probably go back and see if there's any final questions. And it doesn't look like there are. I sure appreciate everyone's participation. Hope to see you in Las Vegas at the first workshop that's scheduled for February 6th next year. Everyone have a nice holiday. Goodbye. Thank you very much.